Welcome everyone to this episode of the Tekid podcast. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, how you doing, Akis? And nice to meet everybody. Firstly, I probably should introduce myself a little bit more than just the hello. Basically, I manage marketing and growth here at ChargeAutomation. I've been with the company now for about coming up to 6 months now. I'm also a property manager myself, so I manage a portfolio of properties in the south of Spain. So basically, I have a very close relationship to property managers. I understand what the pains we go through. So this is why I joined ChargeAutomation, because the tool itself is a really versatile, but it can also be quite a complex and very powerful tool depending on how you want to use it.
Is it for someone that has 1 to 5 properties that is just starting out first year, first couple of years? Is it more like at the stage where things are starting to become more complicated and you need more automation, more streamlining, a better user experience?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, because I think the thing is, ChargeAutomation is a tool which is available for a smaller kind of property portfolio. So if you just have the one, all the way up to, you're managing hundreds of properties. And we cater for all those users. The important thing to remember is that as a property manager, you want to deliver a really great guest experience. And I guess if you just have the one property, you might manage everything manually because you have the time to do it. But as soon as you start entering the domain of more than one property, you have a lot more to juggle. And this is where ChargeAutomation does actually provide you with a lot of, let's just say, workflow autonomy. So it does the whole check-in process for you. You don't have to worry about that. You just sends the link out automatically. It does all those elements for you. And what's really great is you might not even have a PMS. You might just start with an OTA. So for example, you're working on Booking or Airbnb. We work with that too. So, as soon as you're ready to expand into using platforms like Toki, which are, that helps you really grow your property portfolio. We have that full little sync, that fully synced integration between the two platforms there. So it really doesn't, there's no minimum number and there's no maximum number at the end of the day. What it's here to do is help you maximize that whole guest experience. And when I say maximize, make things easier for the guest, make things easier for you, but also generate more revenue through the tools that we have. We offer upsells, which is our biggest tool that we have. On average, we're seeing an increase of about $40 per rental as a result of using the upsell tool. Which is crazy if you think about it, because, okay, you've got one property. Okay, you might generate maybe, I don't know, $100 or $200 a month. That's money in your pocket. But when you start expanding that over to 100 properties, you're talking thousands, and that is revenue that's easily generated, and that's through late checkouts, early check-ins, services that you might want to provide that you otherwise can't or the guest doesn't see. I'll give you an example on my side, actually, and this is genuine, right? So like I said, I have more than 20 properties that I manage, and so obviously it's quite complex, and we have an entire team that surrounds us. But we were doing upselling through WhatsApp, and we were doing it on request. We were kind of sending an email, we send a WhatsApp, people ask us questions. We say, hey, if you want anything, just contact us. But there was no marketing direct, and there was no push. And that meant that you might get the odd upsell. You might get somebody saying, hey, can you help me get tickets for, the Sea Life area? Or can you help me, can you offer me a late checkout, etc. But it was all done on a whim. Since we've implemented upsells, it's a completely different ballgame. And we've seen a massive uplift in upsells. And my wife, who's my business partner, I bring my wife up in every call. Sorry about that. She is my business partner and she's my boss. So, but yeah, she was really skeptical. But the fact is now, we started off just doing WhatsApp updates, and then we went into the whole upsell tool within ChargeAutomation. And what you found on here is that people are actively, they're using their single link, because we remind them of this in the WhatsApp messages. They log in and they see all the things that are available to them, and they just buy it because they think, cool, I want that. Get that. And they don't have to contact people. A guest doesn't want to always talk to somebody. They want to just get on with their life. But at the same time, you also mentioned there are people who do things manually. And they're very traditional bed and breakfast kind of style businesses. And that's great. They have a very hands-on approach. But like I said, as soon as you have more than one property, it starts getting a lot tougher. Plus, if you're not on site with them all the time, it's next to impossible, because you're not seeing that guest all the time. So this gives you maximum visibility, and it also gives the guest the opportunity to make those purchases. And because we have that full payment integration, you don't have to worry about taking card details. They can do it, securely on through the guest journey. And obviously, one of the things we have as well now, which I guess we can talk about that in a bit. on the upsells is we have dynamic content. So that makes things really interesting. I don't know if you want to jump into that particular one right now.
Yes. Actually, I think that's a great moment to talk a bit more about the features. So I'll leave you to kind of like explain the
Okay.
core features that people should pay attention to.
Sure. I mean, like I said, the key thing is obviously charge automation is an end-to-end tool. So we offer the whole check-in experience. So if you just want to get your guests checked in, you want to take their details, we have that. It's straightforward, and you can sign up for free and just use that product right away. There's no problem with that. Now, the next thing is you want to want to take maybe the balance of a payment or whatever it might be. And again, you can do that by integrating your payment provider, your payment gateway with Charge Automation. So we offer Stripe, which is the common global one, but we also offer 130 different payment gateway methods. So basically, we are truly global, and that's great with using tools like Toki, because ultimately Toki is a global platform. We're a global payment gateway, so you have that expandability. You can work in local markets, and within there, obviously, you have 100 different payment methods. So when I say payment methods, you're talking things like Visa, card payments. You're talking about Klarna, Apple Pay. You're talking about, for example, in Brazil, we just launched Pix, which is amazing. So the Brazilian market is wide open for charge automation. It's the most popular online payment method. So you can take payments that way, which is great for local guests. The next part is deposits. And deposits are a big deal. In fact, again, I take deposits for my properties, but I've even had at a conference where two guys came up to us and they saw the deposit element. They said, "How does that work?" And we told them all about it. And they said, "Oh my God, you won't believe this." And he showed me a photograph on his phone. And the apartment was trashed, completely trashed. And they had no deposit because they couldn't take the deposit at the time. And it basically meant that they'd lost out. They had to fix their apartment. They were so down. We told them we could take deposits using Charge Automation, and they literally signed up on the spot in the middle of the conference. This is actually the Short Stay Summit. It was brilliant, and they walked away super happy. And they are two great clients of ours. The really cool thing about that as well with the deposits is we also take damage waivers now. This is a new feature. So the damage waiver can work in conjunction with insurance policies that you might have. So you have, let's say, a fixed fee, whatever, $50 or whatever it might be. That basically means that you can take an insurance policy against any damages that might occur, and that limits the liability on the guest in terms of the amount they've got to pay. So yeah, there are lots of flexible options there. And the other thing I'll mention with the damage deposit is it's a pre-authorization. So you're not taking the money off the guest, you're pre-authorizing it. So I think that takes us nicely into the next topic, which is the upsells. We were talking about that
Before we jump
sure.
there, so just one question. So we were also at the same event at the
Yeah, I
Short Stay
remember.
Summit in London. Yeah. So one of the conversations we were having very frequently with different types of property managers, especially those that are below 30 properties, below 25,
Yeah.
is kind of like I'm fully reliant on Airbnb, Booking.com, the major platforms. I have no way, or I don't know how to move out of this mix and basically just start getting more direct bookings, which obviously makes a lot of sense because of like the margins and all of that.
Sure.
What you guys do, so deposits and all of those things, they are more important when someone is getting direct bookings because if you work through the platforms, kind of like some of that or a big portion of that, depending on how much you're using on Charge Automation, is already provided by the platform. So what's your take on that? So is Charge Automation kind of like can it enable you to start leveraging the direct booking market? Like does that play a role, or is that something that first you have to figure out how to get direct bookings and then go ahead and kind of like implement the tool that enables all of those things?
Yeah, that is an awesome question because I've been there, done that, and this year, by taking more direct bookings, in fact, we've Booking.com. It's a necessary item. You need it for marketing. That's essentially what you're paying for. And same for Airbnb. But I don't want those bookings because the commission charges are immense, and that's a huge cost to me. And I want more direct bookings. Booking.com knows that. Airbnb knows that. So there are obviously. Charge Automation enables you to make those payments. So essentially, if you do take a direct booking, you can take a secure payment from that guest. So if you have the means to market to direct guests through emails, through your website that you might have, SEO, you might want to market through Google Ads or Facebook ads, whatever it might be, Instagram, etc. as you bring your guests in, you can take those bookings and then you can charge them using ChargeAutomation in the local payment method that you'd like. Thereby, you're completely going around Booking.com. Of course, what you tend to find, and what I think I've seen on my end, is a lot of people are looking on Booking.com, they're looking at Airbnb, and then they're looking locally using Google and trying to find that property, because everyone knows that rates on Booking.com and different platforms are significantly higher. Because you've got to cover those commission costs, otherwise, it's the thing. But of course, there's always people who prefer to book on Booking.com because they feel that that is a place of security for them. You're never going to change those people, and that's absolutely fine. I think it's a marketplace that needs to be seen in that way. But certainly with ChargeAutomation, if you take a direct booking, you can make the payment. You can take that guest payment. You can take their damage waiver or damage deposit. And then you can allow them, when they stay with you, to process more and more, process upsells. The other cool thing about direct bookings is that you have their actual details, whereas on Booking, you have a masked email. So afterwards, because you use ChargeAutomation with Booking or with Airbnb, because you're requesting them to check in, you can take real details from those guests. So again, another upshift on that side. So essentially what I'm saying here is that, okay, you process the Booking.com payment or the Airbnb payment or guest, you get them to check in using ChargeAutomation, and now you have their details. So you can target them and say, hey, book direct with us for the best rate, because you have their email, which is something you're not allowed to do using the Airbnb messaging channels. So you have that opportunity as well. So in fact, you can convert OTA guests to direct guests really, really easily that way.
Yeah, and also you're building basically your audience for repeat guests, repeat bookings, or again, people that are going to recommend your property because you sent them an email later
Right.
on. So it builds your an opportunity to generate even more direct bookings down the coming
100%.
period. Yep.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. So let's talk a bit about the upsells part. You were just about to cover that.
Yeah, it's a huge deal because, like I said, the challenge that we have nowadays, and we did a podcast on this a little while ago, and one of the things you've got to kind of what you find as a property manager is you do your rental and that's your income. That's traditionally where you generate your revenue stream. But nowadays, costs are going up: electric costs, insurance costs, maintenance costs, just general staff costs if you have staff. Everything is going up. So those margins are getting smaller and smaller. So you need to find ways to generate more revenue. And when you have a guest staying with you, you have them. They're your guests. They're looking at you to support them. So this is where upsells come into their own. We've always offered upsells, but we've never seen them as an upsell. We've always seen it as a late checkout or an early check-in. It's always seen that way. But upsells as a product, as a feature, have always existed. What we've done is, what upsells on ChargeAutomation are essentially is, let's say, a facilitation of all those features. It means that guests can simply jump into it and choose what they want. And the cool thing about the upsells that we offer is that we have a lot of dynamic workflows. So say, for example, you have 2 adults and 2 kids, well, you're going to want to offer them family-friendly deals. Maybe, like I said, the Sea Life Centre. You might want to offer them maybe not parasailing, that's probably for couples, but a trip up to the local zoo that you get a commission deal on. You want to offer them the taxi service for the larger taxi to accommodate them all. Similar things like that. If you have a couple, you might want to offer them a champagne experience, or you might want to offer them massage, but you can target them accordingly based on the guest details that you have in ChargeAutomation, which is amazing. But a really cool feature which we've just done right now, and this is something which, again, I think every property manager has felt this. You have a guest and they go to you and they say, hey, I want a late checkout. And you have to say no because it's unavailable because you have a back-to-back booking. Now, in the past, when you did this autonomously, the worst thing would happen would be that the guest would want to pay for the late checkout, you charge them, and then as a property manager, you have to go back and say, I'm really sorry, we can't accommodate you because there is no availability. We'll process your refund. So what happens there? You've got a guest who's spent what is in many cases their hard-earned holiday money, and they might have a very finite amount, and they've got to wait for that refund. That could take 5 to 10 days, because the banks, they take forever. You've also disappointed them because, there is no late checkout. So all in all, and also as a property manager, you've cost yourself the commissions on processing that charge and the refund. So it's just an all in all negative experience. And that also leads to poor reviews. So with the new tools we've just released, in fact, we've literally just launched it now in Charge Automation, and it's amazing. You can read the calendar on Toki. So we can see that if there is a gap, and you can define rules and say, if there is a 1 day gap between the current stay, offer the late checkout. You can just do it straight away. And you have then two choices. You can charge them straight away because you know that you got the availability. Or maybe as a property manager, instead of wanting to charge them straight away, you want to double check, because sometimes, even though the calendar says one thing, you might want to do some maintenance. You can pre-authorize that money. So it would pre-authorize the amount, confirming that the guest has the money. Then you can see, okay, is the availability there? I can confirm that. You accept it. The guest knows they're getting their late checkout. It updates everything in the booking, and then it charges the customer, the guest. If the availability isn't there, you just cancel the pre-authorization, and no charge is taken from that account. Therefore, you save a ton of commission fees. You don't have to process refunds, and you avoid disappointment. So it's a really, really amazing feature we've just enabled right now, and that's available to everybody that uses Charge Automation. And the great thing is with Tokeet, because we have that two-way sync, we're sending that information back and forth, and it works seamlessly. So it's really awesome. I do recommend you check it out.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Actually, it's very well thought out. I was paying attention as you were describing it, because when I talk to our support team, there are hundreds and hundreds of cases where someone did a wrong setting on some channel, some tool, and then you end up with like 3 bookings for the same night,
right?
And then you're not entirely sure what happened there. So yeah, and then that these are the types of problems that bring people to Tokeet, so that they stop having those problems. So makes sense. So regarding upsells, have you seen kind of like latent demand when it comes to the opportunity for upsells? Like, do guests actually have to request an upsell, or are they also open to, hey, they sent us a message that we can do late checkout, or there's this option? Could do they take advantage of those like promoted upsells, or is it more on a request basis?
So, if I understand your question correctly here, so essentially, what you tend to find, obviously, with Charge Automation is that you have to obviously communicate that they have access to all these features through the guest app. Okay, everybody gets their unique link, and they can see what the availability is. And because obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you can configure everything to be displayed dynamically based on the guest profile, based on the availability of some products. Only those features will ever be displayed. Now, you might have an instance where somebody can contact you directly and say, hey, can you offer X, Y, Z? You've got 2 avenues on this one that you can approach, and I hope I'm kind of going down the right way here. Yeah. The first one is you can just direct them to the guest app. Now, the downside is they've got to do an additional couple of links. They might lose interest. You're done. The other thing is you can also generate within Charge Automation, you can talk to that guest directly and say, well, look, that's cool. I can offer this to you, and you can generate a payment link from directly within Charge Automation, which is tied into that booking. So that is another option. So you have them on the phone, they're there, and they're like, okay, really, I want to do this. So you can take the payment, and you can say, hey, look, I'm just sending this to your email, to your WhatsApp, SMS. Just click on the link and process the payment. You've got everything sorted, and I can confirm it to you on the phone while we're here. So they might want to put you on speakerphone, whatever. But yeah, you have that option to manage it on the fly as well. So it's not just leaving the guest to do it by themselves. You have that option to process and create a product payment link, and send it to the guest. So you have that flexibility in Charge Automation too.
Okay, that makes sense. And I imagine, so if you use a platform like Tokeet, you could set up certain messages that go out to the guests in order to trigger that interest, and like, okay, let's explore what's available here, and then they can use the link, they can go into the app, or they can reply back. And anyway, you can build a workflow around kind of like how to drive more ancillary revenue. So yeah, that makes sense. So, but you would need a tool like Charge Automation to do that, to leverage this opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you could do it manually, but just imagine the amount of work you'd have to do. You would have to process payment links. You'd have to then update everything manually. You have to look at availability. Everything is done completely manually. So yeah, absolutely, you could do it manually. But as soon as you realize the amount of time you spend doing that, it's a lost cause. You got to think about your time costs money, and that time can be better placed doing other things, marketing, producing CRM, email newsletters, or even just interacting with guests,
Yeah.
directly, that kind of stuff. If you've got to spend your entire time processing upsells and things, you will burn out in seconds, especially during peak seasons. I mean, we have people
Yeah.
coming to our office asking the craziest of things all the time, and you're just like, okay, here we go again.
Yeah.
It's just, what's the Wi-Fi code? It's written right in front of you. you know. So
Yeah.
that's the latest one we get. Well, that's the one we get all the time. I think it's the common one that everyone talks about.
Yeah, 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 true. Okay, so if someone wanted to kind of like explore charge automation, how to get started, what would be the first step for them to kind of like explore this? What would be the path for that?
Sure. I mean, the first thing, the first thing that I can say is just to sign up and connect your PMS and your payment platform is completely free of charge. There's no cost to that. So you're not going to be committing any of your, you can set up the tool, you can kind of configure things as you like it. It's not going to cost you anything. So you have nothing to lose in that respect. Obviously, when you start using features, there are costs, and there's no. It's like with any other product. If you want to start processing payments, there are commission costs involved there. You also have, if you want to use ID verification, there is a cost to that too. But as a check-in tool alone, we have so many clients of us who just use us as a check-in tool, and it doesn't cost them a single penny. It's great. What we're trying to do though is encourage them to use upselling, and obviously with the upsell tools, you can drive. They can drive further revenue, and we're seeing a massive adoption in that area because people just they don't seem to be aware of it, and that's the crazy thing. They've set it up and they've literally just forgotten about it, and it just does its thing, and they get the data they need, and they don't explore the tool any further. So what we tend to find is once we start making them aware of these features, people are like, oh, okay, well, upselling, isn't that just going to take me lots of time? No. You set it up this way. You get everything set up accordingly. You put your upsells in there. You just let it run, and then you're driving revenue right there. So I think in many cases, start by setting up the account, and also our account experience team. They are brilliant. Our customer experience team, sorry, they will reach out to you as well, and they will onboard you. There's no commitment. They won't, they'll obviously say if you want to use these features, it'll cost this. But if you just need help setting up, they will do everything for you. So it's really straightforward to kind of get set up in that way. One other feature I didn't mention before is actually smart locks as well, and I can't believe I forgot that one too, because it goes hand in hand with the whole check-in experience. We have many instances where we only release the codes once obviously the check-in is done, payment is completed, and damage deposit has been paid. And we've also just launched a new feature on smart locks. Then we can actually offer more than one lock per property. So, for example, you have an entrance lobby that requires a lock. Also, your bedroom requires a lock. Your room requires a lock. And you can actually have the same code for both of them through ChargeAutomation. So you can actually synchronize things really, really easily that way. So it just makes the experience really, really seamless for the guest.
Yeah, yeah. Smart devices in general are, I think, a massive opportunity for our sector, which is, I mean, it's still like there's a big chunk of properties that are not using smart locks or smart devices, but just the smart locks part and being able to do exactly the things that you mentioned right now. I think this would unlock so much value for property managers. It's just that the unit economics have to work. So you need to have a certain level of revenue so that it makes sense to invest in smart locks, and because they're not cheap, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah.
I'm actually, I don't have smart locks on my property, and I'm again talking to the boss, my wife, and trying to convince her to allow me to actually get those installed on our property. And the thing is, as you've said, smart locks aren't for everybody, and there is a significant investment cost behind all of them. But what you also have to realize is keys get lost. Our guests lose keys all the time. And then if they lose a key, you need to replace that barrel. That's expensive. You need to invest your time doing it. Again, that's expensive because nobody thinks about their time. Time is money. The other part is you've also upset the guest because you need to charge the guest now. So, we charge our guests X amount. They're upset. It's their fault. They've lost the key, but they've lost the key and it's our fault. That's generally how it works. And so you have to charge them. And unfortunately, because we have to invest time and effort, it's a non-refundable cost because we can't say, hey, if you find the key, bring it back to us, because we've already invested time changing the barrel, doing all the bits and pieces. So it gets even worse when they find their key at the end of the stay and they go, "Oh, we found it." It's like, "Oh, okay, cool. Can we have our money back?" No, not really,
Nope.
because we've had to change everything. Then you get a really sour guest. So, and we face that day in, day out. It's not just a once in a while. We face it really often. So this is where smart locks come into their own. By you lose the fob, c'est la vie. Maybe you get 2 or 3 fobs, and then every extra fob you can charge a couple of euros just to cover your cost, because the NFC tokens, cards, they do cost money. But ultimately, I think you can get past that investment quite quickly. And when you combine it with things like upsells, you're driving revenue on the side. Straight away, you have the revenue to support yourself, getting smart locks. And you can create a really, really complete guest experience. And I can tell you right now, I've seen smart locks in action. They're amazing. I stayed at a place in Granada. It was just so nice. No keys, no hassle. I'm there. I'm just unlocking my room with my app. You walk straight in. You don't have to think about a key. You just got your phone on you, and it just works. So yeah, like I said, it's we can integrate that beautifully within ChargeAutomation, and we can provide all those details in there. So when you log into your app, you have your code, or you swipe, to unlock. It's all there for you.
Yep. Perfect. So if someone wants to learn more, is there a way to contact you or someone from the team to ask a question? What would be the best way they do that?
I think the best thing to do is go to chargeautomation.com, and there is a book a demo, and we can give you a completely free, no commitment demo of the product. If you just want to jump straight in, create your account, and we will contact you. You don't have to speak to us, but we are nice people, so please do speak to us, Mara, and the rest of the team. They're a fantastic team. They're out there to help you. So like I said, you have both avenues. If you're unsure, you want to see a demo of the product, just go to book a demo by going to chargeautomation.com. There's a link there. It'll tell you all about, tell you how to kind of set that up, and we'll contact you and give you that demo. Again, it's no commitment at all. You have nothing to lose, because at the end of the day, if you haven't got a guest experience, I highly recommend you get one. But the second part is, like I said, we can support all the payment methods that you have. We can give you the upsells to generate more revenue. We can improve that whole guest experience. And a happier guest means better reviews, and therefore means more revenue. So, it's from my perspective and from my experience, it's a win-win.
Thank you, Nick. So it's been a really interesting conversation. I think your insights as a property manager yourself are invaluable here. And it's not just about the product, it's about you seeing this from both sides, both from a vendor point of view as well as a property manager. So thanks again for the insights. And for the audience, we'll just see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to it. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.